on, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to another video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. As you guys can tell from the thumbnail and the title, I am once again joined in this video by Q Reviews. I'm really happy to have you in this video, man. Q is easily one of the biggest Jason fans that I've ever met, and yeah, I just love how much passion he has for this franchise, and also how honest he is with certain installments in the franchise. And yeah, here we are talking about the one where Jason goes to New York City, or at least that's what they want you to think. Q Reviews will get into it a little bit more later on, but yeah, in this movie they actually had to film a lot of scenes in Toronto and other filming locations because they couldn't get all of the shooting sites that they needed and wanted for some sequences that they had in this film originally written in. So when you watch this movie, there's a lot of time spent in alleyways and stuff like that because they really couldn't get into deep Manhattan like they actually wanted to. Which is actually really funny as well when you think about it, because Jason's only really in New York for like the last 20 minutes of the movie or so, maybe a little bit more, but he's not there for long. Majority of the film actually takes place on a boat. So as usual, you have the really ridiculous way to bring Jason back in this film. At the end of the last film, he was once again at the bottom of Camp Crystal Lake, just essentially just his body was just sitting there, just like at the end of the last one before that. And this time around, a couple happens to have their boat out on the lake. They throw the anchor out, and it somehow gets tangled in some wires that are under the water in Camp Crystal Lake. It's just like, why are these wires here? Jason's body is for some reason lying on top of these cables. It ends up causing some sort of electrical surge, and that's how Jason comes back. So this will make the third time I think that Jason has been resurrected in the franchise, and I think the second time with electricity, which I'm not knocking, I just find it to be funny. My favorite slasher franchise is Chucky, and that franchise has so many terrible installments, but it's that really over-the-top cheesiness that I kind of really enjoy about Chucky, and he's been resurrected in some of the most ridiculous ways that are completely inconsistent and make no sense. So Jason is no different, and majority of these slasher characters are exactly like this. But yeah, that's how they bring him back in this movie. And one thing I really enjoy about this film is it kind of leans into kind of the humor that you see in something like Jason Lives. There's a moment that Q Reviews talks about later on where he ends up walking through the streets of Manhattan, and there's these punk rock guys and they're listening to music on their stereo, and Jason just comes through and fucking kicks the thing and just keeps walking. And when they try to pick a fight with him, he ends up just turning around, lifting his mask, showing his face, and they just look terrified and run away. So this film does know that it's really silly. It knows that the concept of Jason is silly, and they're leaning on that, right? Because I think that the 7 films tried to take itself a little too seriously while also doing some really weird things. And this film, I think, leans more into what I enjoy about Jason Lives, which is that it's a silly film while also having these horror and creepy elements in the mix. Now, with that said, this is not a great film. This is definitely just okay. I think I like it a little bit more than Q Reviews, I'll be honest, but only because I'm a fan of horror that's really cheesy and schlocky. And I think that this film knows enough about what it is for me to enjoy it. However, there are some things in here and some creative decisions on a writing level that I just can't help but feel like, what the fuck were they thinking? I think without a doubt the biggest thing that happens in this film that's super weird is that there's this thing where they keep seeing a premonition, specifically the main character. She keeps seeing a premonition of a young Jason, and there's showing a young boy that looks nothing like Jason looked like in the earlier films. As far as, you know, he's always been deformed. He's always had this deformity, and he looks nothing like he did when he was a kid in the earlier films at all. And yeah, they keep showing this new actor playing the young Jason and these premonitions that she's getting, and he has like the deformed eye, but the makeup looks really bad, and it's just really cheesy, and not cheesy in the good way. It feels like they were trying to do something creepy and cool, and it just turns out to be very, very strange. And then one of the weirdest things that Q Reviews gets into a little bit more is at the very end when they essentially disintegrate Jason via this acidic, toxic waste and toxic sewage down in the sewers. He literally melts to goo. It looks like he's completely just decimated. And then when they go down there and look at the remains of Jason, you see the young boy, and it's just strange. There were certain things that just feel unexplained, and that's one of my biggest issues with this film, is they just kind of go with things, they kind of just do things creatively that just feel like they don't really make sense, and it just kind of feels like it ruins the film, to be honest. Now, before I give you guys my final thoughts on this movie, let's go ahead and hear what Q Reviews have to say about this.
Just 'cause you play it cool, don't think you got this fool tonight. Alright, don't ask me to stay.
Yo, Anthony, thanks for having me back for another Friday the 13th movie. In this Friday the 13th movie, I guess we're talking about Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Alright, I'm getting my positives straight up off the back. Kane Hodder is back for his second iteration as the killer Jason Voorhees. And this time, they decide they're going to take Jason out of Camp Crystal Lake and bring him to the Big Apple. That's right, Manhattan. Now, Kane Hodder here is the best part of this movie, hands down. He brings... I think he's probably the best person to ever play the killer Jason Voorhees. His physicality and the way he can emote himself without really saying nothing with the mask and the, you know what I'm saying, and the motions that he does really brings a lot to the Jason Voorhees character for a character that can't really talk. And I thought he stepped his game up even more in Friday the 13th Part 8 Jason Takes Manhattan than his first time around in Friday the 13th The New Blood. Now, there's a lot more stunts in New Blood. Jason gets a house dropped on him, he falls through stairs, he jumps through windows, he was doing some crazy shit. As you don't know, Kane Hodder used to be a stuntman. But Friday the 13th Part 8 Jason Takes Manhattan, I remember seeing this in the theater in 1989. I went dressed as Jason Voorhees. I was so excited, but when I left I was highly disappointed. This movie fucking sucks, straight up, you know. And that you're talking about somebody who the Friday the 13th franchise is my favorite slasher franchise of all time, but this movie is a very weak slasher movie. Let's get to the kills. None of the kills are really interesting except one kill in this whole film. There is not a lot of carnage candy, not a lot of good special effects. All the kills are not really that inventive, and they're boring, and they don't show a lot that's happening to these teenagers. I can give a fuck what happens about these teenagers, or do I care about their character development, because there is none. They're just teenagers. I don't even remember half of the teenagers on this trip. This film does not take place in Manhattan a whole lot. I think it's only the last like 5 minutes of the film. I give it 15-20 minutes. What happened was they didn't have the budget to shoot as much footage as they wanted to do in Manhattan. They wanted to shoot in the Empire State Building. They wanted to shoot in Madison Square Garden, but all that shit got shut down. And half of this film that's supposed to take place in Manhattan actually was shot in Toronto and alleys and things and such. We took it back. And now let's talk about the look of Jason Voorhees here. I think he looks absolutely fucking terrible, bro. He looks like Slimer slimed him over and over again. He's always wet and nasty looking. And then his mask gets taken off at the end of the movie. He gets toxic waste in his face. And I swear to God, he looks like some poodle white doodoo. That's what Jason Voorhees' face looked like. Jason Voorhees' face never looked like this shit. He looked literally like shit, like a piece of shit. Jason looks like a piece of shit. At the end of this movie, I'm all over the place. I don't give a fuck. They throw toxic waste on him, and he turns back into a regular, fine-looking young lad here. You know what I'm saying? Jason Voorhees has always been deformed, and he just turns into a little lad in a pool of, you know, clean water now with his little Superman underoos on. It makes no sense. And Jason Voorhees was always just like, okay, if you come to Camp Crystal Lake and I see you in my spot, son, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna kill you. That's what it's all about. Jason takes a boat ride and then go start hunting down these random rest of the people that was on the ship like he got some fucking vendetta. Makes no sense. Whatever. Kane Hodder's cool though. His physicality is cool, and it's cool to see him in the big NYC. You know, the poster was always cool. I like that. And there's one scene that I like in this film. Two scenes I'm gonna mention right now. When some fucking punk rockers, this is 1989 now. I mean, like, punk rock was a big thing in 89. I don't know. I thought it may have been hip hop, whatever. They listen to music, and then Jason just come busting through like a G and just fucking kick they shit, son. Oh shit. And they pull out a fucking switchblade. I don't know. Back in the 80s, I guess, to be tough, you just switch the switchblade, and you turn around and look at Jason, and Jason just fucking pulls his mask up like, you don't want none of this, son. You don't want none of this, son. And it's like, oh shit, my bad, dude, my bad. I like that. I like how he fucking kicked the radio like he really ain't give a fuck. I like that shit. And then there's another part where Jason, this lady's coming like on the escalator, and Jason's trying to chase somebody coming down. He just knocks the shit out of her, dog. I'm like, that lady looked like she was really hurt. It didn't look like that was acted. I like, he really fucked her up. And the best kill in this this movie is, of course, homie want to throw the fade with Jason Voorhees. This motherfucker looks like a wet brick shit house. And you wanna fight this son. You wanna fight this dude, right? You know what I'm saying? He's about 8 feet tall with a hockey mask on. Obviously, he wasn't in the training camp in the boxing gym doing crunches, you know, and hitting the speed bag. This dude was a maniac. Yo, shoot the fade with Jason. Sure, this movie's already stupid, so he's shooting the fade with Jason. Do. Lasts about a minute and a half, and then dude's like, take your best shots. Jason grabs him, knocks his fucking block off. They had this camera that was actually in a soccer ball, and it rolls and it rolls and it rolls, and it hits the dumpster. Probably one of the best kills in the Friday the 13th franchise, but it wasn't really that gory, but it was just kind of cool to see somebody shoot the fade with Jason. Anyway, man, Friday the 13th Part 8, I think this is really when the franchise started going down. The look of Jason, this stupid plot being on this cruise ship. Cruise ships aren't scary. It's a kill with some stupid hot rocks, I think, and a harpoon gun, but it wasn't creative. It wasn't anything good. It really brought the movie down. Jason looks terrible. He looks like a wet paper bag. Thank God for Kane Hodder for playing the iconic killer that brought some type of presence to Jason Voorhees. That's as much as I can say that can salvage this movie. Other than that, this movie really sucks. And I wouldn't watch Friday the 13th Part 8 Jason Takes Manhattan unless you're just a huge fan like me and like Jason Voorhees. I do like Kane Hodder's performance, but even as a Friday the 13th fan, I would say skip this. This is not the one I go revisit. I usually go revisit, of course, Jason Lives, or of course, my favorite slasher of all time, Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. Man, skip all the way with this. But at least I can say Jason was in this one. Now, the next one, this should be interesting to talk about, Anthony. I would love to hear your thoughts on the next Friday the 13th. But as for Jason Takes Manhattan, it's trash, man. I'm going to give this a 2.8. If I'm being nice, out of 5, you know what I'm saying? The best thing about this movie was the punch kill and Kane Hodder. Other than that, please skip Friday the 13th Part 8 because it's trash. Thanks for having me on, Anthony. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Once again, a big thanks to my boy Q Reviews for being in this video with me. Again, a huge Jason fan, but I love how real you were about this movie, man. Yeah, it's definitely not a great movie. There's a lot about this film to just kind of laugh at. As a huge Jason fan, I recommend it on that level alone, but it's definitely not a must-watch in this franchise. One thing that I actually find that's funny about this movie that Q Reviews didn't mention, I actually thought you were going to mention it, man, is the fact that Jason actually laughs in this movie for the first time. There's a moment, I think there's 2 moments in this film where Jason laughs, one of which he's riding the anchor up onto this boat, and literally the anchor's coming out of the water, and Jason's holding on to it, and he has this like kind of laugh, and it's just like, what? Like, Jason laughing after all these films, he's never made a sound, he's never said a word, and now he's laughing. I just thought that was really, really funny. But yeah, guys, the basic premise of this film, because I didn't say that before, because who really cares, is like I said, Jason has been resurrected by some bullshit, and now these characters are going on a cruise ship that is going to take them from wherever the fuck they are all the way down to Manhattan. Jason decides to follow them, gets on the boat with them, and he's just wreaking havoc on this boat all the way up to when they get to Manhattan, and then he wreaks havoc in Manhattan as well, and then he ends up getting decimated at the end of the film. That's the basic premise, and what plays out in the film is, it's just another film where Jason has tons of characters that you don't care about that he's going to kill, and tons of things that don't really matter to the story, but that's essentially the movie. And I forgot to mention it for my review of Part 7, The New Blood, but Kane Hodder made his first appearance as Jason in that film, and yeah, I think he is arguably one of the best people to ever wear the costume and to ever wear the hockey mask. He just has a physicality about the way that he plays Jason that is just really badass. I really enjoy the way that Jason feels and looks, and just the overall vibe of his overall physicality in The New Blood and moving forward. He does 4 films, if I'm not mistaken. He does The New Blood, he does this one, I think he does Jason X, and I think he also did the one before that, Jason Goes to Hell. So yeah, I think he does the last 4 films in this timeline of films. But yeah, you know, outside of Kane Hodder and the really cool Jason design, yeah, a lot about this film just definitely falls flat. There are some funny kills in here. Q Reviews already mentioned some of them, so I didn't want to just keep saying the same things. But all the kills and stuff that he mentioned is really some of the best and funniest stuff in this film. Outside of that, there really isn't much that's memorable. A lot of the kills, like he was saying, was not very creative. There was a lot about this film that just feels forgettable. You don't even really spend time in Manhattan. So I always remember the poster being really cool. I remember a lot of the imagery being cool, and these really funny moments that stood out to me when I was younger, and things that still stuck with me when I rewatched it today. But yeah, watching this one, all I could really think about was, yeah, it's just another Friday the 13th film, but this time he ends up in Manhattan at the end of the film. And, you know, outside of some really weird creative choices, like I mentioned, the younger Jason, that just kind of is a weird thing to keep adding into the film, there's really not much to really grip onto. You don't care about any of the characters. Everybody is super forgettable. There's creepy characters, there's weird characters, there's slutty characters, there's the nerd character, and you don't really care about anybody. You're just kind of expecting them all to die. Q Reviews already mentioned it, but I will say one of my favorite scenes from that film, without a doubt, is the scene with the guy literally going toe-to-toe with Jason. You know, he's essentially just punching Jason, and Jason's taking all of it like no problem. He ends up getting exhausted, and Jason ends up punching off his head with one of the worst and cheesiest effects in the franchise, but it's one of the most memorable kills in the franchise, and it's something I definitely enjoy about this movie. So yeah, guys, on an overall level, Jason Takes Manhattan, not a fantastic film. However, as a diehard fan of this franchise and just of slasher films that are really cheesy, I would say check it out if you're gonna watch this franchise. If you're just looking to kind of skip through and pick ones to watch, this would not be one of them that I would say is a must watch. But as a fan of this franchise and having it in a collection, I'm not too mad going back and rewatching it. Again, a huge thanks to Q Reviews for being in this video. As usual, guys, you can find the links to his channel down below in the description box. Give him some love. Let him know what you guys thought about what he had to say. If you go and check out his channel, let him know I sent you. And yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Comment down below if you guys want to see more content like this. And as usual, I will see each and every single one of you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.